What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Mind Something. The following discussion with IE the developer of BZminer, was taken from last week's live stream, which we do every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you find this kind of content interesting, be sure to hit that like button and let me know you want some more. And I also wanted to talk just briefly about halvings in general. So for those that aren't aware, Warthog just had a halving yesterday, and it does look like a little bit of hash rate has fallen off, but not as much as I would expect. So I think we got some diehard people that are into Warthog that are going to stick around no matter what. But, you know, when it comes to cryptocurrencies following Bitcoin's path and having a halving, whether it's every year or once every 4 years, do we really need altcoins to have a halving at this point at all? When it comes to emission schedules, I'm still shocked at what some coins are capable of doing. Take, for example, Caspa. Fastest emission schedule we've probably ever seen, maybe will ever see. And it still outpaced its halving. It didn't seem to matter that the amount of coins going into circulation, they just weren't outpacing the sell. So, I look at all of these other cryptocurrencies that have a halving. Take, for example, Warthog in this case, or Ravencoin was a big one. When that one halved, Ravencoin was always up there with the top dogs as far as, what's at the top of the profitability charts. But after the halving, it fell off for a really long time. And here we are, we've kind of come full circle. We've had a lot of different projects to mine, and Ravencoin is kind of back up there. But I understand that in order for there to be scarcity that should potentially drive up the price, you have to have an emission schedule that doesn't just create constant selling pressure. But do you guys feel like halvings are even really necessary at this point for a lot of these lower cap market coins?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, actually, I have some opinions on halvings. So the think a big thing is that developers like to think, oh, we have to reward the early adopters, but they're totally not. I don't know if they're just like overlooking the fact that early adopters are going to be just inherently rewarded by being there early, where there's not going to be, a lot of competition for the coins early on. So you're just going to inherently be mining more coins early on since there's not as many people mining. And so halvings are kind of, I think like there's certain times where halvings are useful, and I think Casper was like maybe one of the only coins I could see having such an aggressive emission cycle being useful, where they wanted most of the coins out before the dedicated hardware came out on the network, and it was always planned to be going to dedicated hardware for mining, and there's going to be less people that are going to be able to afford that hardware to mine on that. So you want most of the distribution to be, or most of the coins to be distributed as early as possible, before that happens. But oh, is my volume too low?
A little
Yeah,
bit.
if you turn your volume up just a little bit. Let me ask this question because I agree with you, and I'll also further and say Dogecoin is unlimited supply. So, I mean, are- which is completely inflationary, and they seem to be doing okay. They seem to be hanging in there. Are we doing it wrong with this idea of halvings and scarcity?
I actually like the idea of having maybe not a max supply. I mean, I don't think it matters so much if there's really a max supply if it takes so long to get there. But at some point, like, this is probably going to be way down the future, but, Bitcoin only has 21 million coins. You could imagine that eventually people's wallets are just like the coins are just going to get lost over time, and they're just going to be, not that many coins in circulation eventually, if any at all. Maybe at someday all the coins will be uh gone for good. I don't know. So I think, but I suppose then again though, at that time, if it does become a problem with like scarcity, the developers can always, make updates to push out more coins or something. I don't know.
So if a coin chooses not to have a halving, what do you guys think is the ideal rate of inflation? Are we shooting for a 2% target like the Fed, or 1%, or half a percent, or 10% a year? What would be ideal in y'all's opinion?
Tough question. I guess I can't really answer that exactly. I don't. In fact, it probably doesn't. I'm sure you'd want some sort of balance between, people want you don't. If it's too inflated, then there's no reason to jump on it early on when they're just going to get a bunch of coins later on. Uh, so maybe not too high of inflation, but I you want the coin to last longer and people to continue securing the network, so you got to keep rewarding them rather than just the early adopters, and then later on nobody's making anything, and the early adopters just have massive bags, which is just asking for a huge, massive dump.
Yep.
So I don't like aggressive emission cycles is not good at all. Whatever you can do to not have that is any coins that have such an aggressive emission coin cycle without having a good reason. Casper is like the only one that I think did have a good reason for it. I just stay away from them because it's just you're just asking for dumps later on, and I just never sell my coins anyways. I just like to hold them for a long periods, so basically forever. So I only really care, that the project's gonna last a long time, ideally. Yeah.
So, if I think about it, maybe Ergo has figured this out because they just started doing their thing where, like, if you don't transfer or do something with your wallet, that all of a sudden everything in your wallet just comes up for grabs and storage or something to that effect. I don't hold me to it, but it's something to that, and then you can like mine to get what was lost in storage or something. I saw something about it a couple weeks ago, and I was like,
Interesting.
yeah, that's interesting. So you definitely have to touch your wallet with Ergo, and so I would want my
Wow.
inflation rate to be about the same as people's wallets getting lost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, actually. I agree with that,
Yeah,
actually.
I like that
Exactly
too.
that.
And
If it, I don't know how you measure that, but yeah.
I think Ergo refers to it as a rent fee essentially. So, um, yeah, if you don't touch it for too long, then you're essentially paying rent. You lose a fee essentially, but it's not like all of your coins are going to disappear overnight because you didn't touch it for 2 years. So
Okay, that makes sense. Interesting. Okay, that's good to know. I had no idea that was a thing. I better touch my wallets.
Oh, it's a thing. It's a thing. Yeah, it's definitely a thing.